All right, everybody, welcome to the Ridgeline Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Phelps Game Calls, professional grade game calls made for every hunter. And also, Burpaw, burpaw.com. Check them out and use Ridge15 for 15% off of your purchase. It's been a while since we've been in studio. We've been busy hunting and fishing, and it's been busy.
Been a couple long weeks, I'll tell you that. It started, fishing season started here in September, basically. Well, late August, but we have a limited amount of days per week we can fish the river, so it went by really quick.
Yeah, and in studio today we have Mike Peterson. Mike is actually the creator of the logo, and he's been on the podcast a couple times. So welcome, Mike, in studio. This is actually the first time in studio Mike's been here, so that's awesome.
I think I hit the applause button.
That's all right. It's not even. There's no sound coming.
Oh,
but
dang! Trying to get fancy.
Actually have those programmed?
No, they're they were already programmed in there.
All right, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself in 20 words or less.
I design stuff. I'm quiet.
You're a new outdoorsman.
Yeah, I like being outside. I'm a new camper hunter person.
Okay.
Or up in there. This is my first year. I think I explained this in the last one when we went over all my gear and stuff.
Yeah. When Dave was actually gone during that time. He was actually in Alabama or something for work.
Yeah, it sounds like a personal
Alabama or Nebraska or...
Oh, Nebraska. Yeah, I went to Nebraska. Forgot about that. I was wondering what you were saying. It's like Alabama.
Yeah,
I drove through there in like 2 hours.
Do that hog hunting.
But yeah, Mike is fresh to hunting, and this is, the last time we were on this podcast, he hadn't even hunted yet. So we haven't had a podcast on in a long time, and we do apologize. We hope not to have a stretch like that again, but when you get busy with life and hunting, as this is a hunting and fishing podcast, we need to do those types of things to have content to talk about. And we were busy hitting the freaking woods and fishing.
Well, Mike got broken right this year.
Well, he went out bear hunting. He went out bear hunting with me, and he had a tag in his pocket, and that was rough.
Saw a bear though.
Yeah, we did see a bear. It was out of my effective range.
Was it 485?
Yeah.
45 yards?
Yeah, 485. I've never really shot over 450 yards, so I didn't really feel comfortable with my setup to shoot that range, which this year, this off season, I'm going to be working on getting my effective range out a lot further, because I know my rifle is definitely capable of it, and my scope setup can do it as well. So, I'm going to be working on my effective range.
That's, they have that long range Wednesday or Thursday at TSC you can do. It's like 600
yards.
600 yards. So you can get some practice in there.
Yeah. It'd be nice just to figure those things out, get it dialed, and, be a better rifle hunter, because I primarily shoot a bow.
I was looking online today, and Meat Eater had an article about the new long range. I didn't even read the whole thing because I looked at the pictures and read most of it, and I was like, dang, this is kind of silly. But people, they do long range shooting competitions. They shot 7,700 and some odd yards at a target. Took them 2 years, and it 69 attempts, 69 shots it take to hit the target at that distance. So I'm looking at the gun they used, and it's like a full chassis system. It has a huge MOA ramp on it. It basically looked like it had a framing square on top of the gun with the scope mounted to it. So and I'm not even sure if it was offset, because the barrel looked like it was going to interfere with the line of sight. So you're shooting basically at probably a 35-degree angle upward to go that far with that bullet. Dead, you can hit anything point blank. You're not even going to look at the scope, man. That thing is I mean, it sees zero probably at a couple thousand yards. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I'm not trying to shoot anything like that. I'm no competition shooter. I'm out there to fill tags. So, but I know that I need to get my effective range out a little bit further just for where I hunt, just because it's wide open. So it's a little bit harder to get closer to animals when it's wide open like that. And when it's super dry in August, if you're not in like a good spot already and the bear or whatever you're hunting comes walking out to where you're at, good luck. You take one step and it's crunching across the canyon there. It's going to look right at you.
Yeah, and we've had some pretty sketchy weather. It was dry most of the summer, and it still hasn't rained a lot, but we had some fires close to where we live. Relatively, because normally our area we hunt doesn't get shut down due to fire danger, and we actually lost our opening weekend. We had to go I think we got there on a Monday night, and normally we're there, opening day, the day before opener, ready to go. But this year it was dry. There was fires within, I don't know, there was a fire over in Kelso area, and then there was a fire over in Packwood, Randall, and so they felt it was necessary to shut down.
There was also one right over by Rife, right where we were camping the weekend before that. So when we went camping, that next weekend there was a fire across the lake.
Yeah,
from where we were camping. Like, oh my gosh,
I'd hate to see it. I talked to an old logger down there, and he'd logged that area for years and retired, and so we were just shooting the breeze, and he was talking about when the elk come out, and how they're always out. Like he said, they're out like big time last week, and now once they start rutting, they kind of get hidden, and then he said it takes about a week for them to come back out. And talked about fire danger for a little bit, but he was like, yeah, it was coming. We knew it was coming, and fortunately, it didn't last long.
Yeah, and it's still smoky now.
Yeah, I don't even know where those are. Where those fires are burning. I stopped paying attention.
I mean, it could be in way up north. It could be in Vancouver. It could be in California. And we can get the smoke up here in Washington. So
yeah,
it's a weird thing, but yeah. So we left off on the last podcast. We did talk about the bear hunt just a little bit, and then we talked about the Sportsman show coming up. It was kind of like a little rewind and recap of what's going on with us, but so Mike and I went deer hunting, and we took some time off work. It was the long weekend, and we hunted deer for 5 days, and 3 of those days were pretty much back in the woods, back in the backcountry, and we didn't see jack shit.
Yeah,
saw a coyote
at camp.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as we're like
I smelled the food.
Biking in after like a long freaking day. All of a sudden, I thought it was a fox actually at first, just because of how the sun was shining down. It looked really orange, and we're both looking at each other like, "Oh, what is that?" Mike's like, "I think it's a coyote," and I was like, "I don't know what the hell that looks like a fox to me because it's all orange."
You know what they say?
But it was just a light.
Anytime you're on a deer hunt, you see a coyote. It's a coyote hunt.
Oh yeah, no. Well, we were so far away, and all I had was my pistol and the bow, and it wasn't in bow range.
Oh.
And I was like, looking through my binos, and I was like, oh, that's a coyote. I was like, let's get a little bit closer. But we had our bikes too, so we're like, and stop, and it would like go like 2 feet and turn around, and I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. We're getting closer. I was gonna send one.
About to let the Glock sang.
Yep.
My bike's hella loud though, so
yeah, the Glockachew would have came out. I choose you, blam.
Nice.
But yeah, no, that didn't happen.
So 5 days.
5 days deer hunting. So we were right around where we were elk hunting. We didn't see anything. We didn't see any sign. Absolutely nothing. So I was like, you know what, man? Instead of spending the full 5 days out here, let's go to like a local spot and we'll just, day hunt. That way we can go home and get showered and, do all that stuff because we're not seeing anything out here. So we pretty much went back home, got everything all done, and then went out for a night hunt. And I think the first night is when we spooked the elk.
that was the next day.
Was that the next day? So the first day was the day that we saw everything then, right?
Yeah. The first full day we went from like morning till afternoon.
Yeah. So I would say within a span of 20 minutes, on our first day in this local spot that we have, we saw what I thought was an elk, which is my fault because it wasn't elk season at the time. So we're walking up, none of us are knocked up. So we're kind of just walking.
Going through the black bushes.
Yeah, we're just going through the brush. And all of a sudden, I hear some wrestling, and it's extremely loud, sounding like a huge animal. And I was like, oh, it's probably an elk. I didn't get knocked up or anything. And boom, out pops a bear.
Dang.
And it was fairly close, and I'm trying to grab an arrow, and I'm just get the release on the string, and I'm getting ready to yard it back, and it bolts.
Now
I'm like, damn it. So I right when he runs, I start fawn calling. It was like almost instantly. And I'm like, boom. Now a doe pops up, runs in like a bat out of hell, like right to us. And then, I'm like, oh crap, I'm getting ready to shoot that. And it takes off. I'm like, son of a gun. And then all of a sudden, we're walking. I hear some more wrestling around. Another doe pops out. And I shot at that one, and I missed it. I didn't think I had time to range it, which I probably had a few seconds to probably take out the rangefinder, range it, and shoot it. But I was confident that I had the range correct, and I was off by about 5 yards. Shot right over its back. I was pissed. But it ran off, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to fawn call again. I fawn call again, and it turns back around, and I'm like, Mike, get ready. I was like, this is your shot, man. Get ready. Because it's actually turning towards him, and now Mike's kind of in front of me anyways. And so I kind of scooted close to Mike. I start ranging everything, and it comes around, and I'm like, it goes behind, it's coming up through some brush, so it's already being kind of loud. And I was like, Mike, draw now. So he's drawn as it's kind of crunching through everything. He's at full draw, and I was like, Mike, once this deer takes 2 more steps past this tree, it's 42 yards, and he's gonna spank that. It never took those 2 steps.
No, it did like a 180 and just went back.
Probably heard him say, Mike, once it steps past that tree.
Well, I was quiet, but I mean, they have a lot more sensitive ears, but I'm trying to coach them through the shot and everything, and yeah, man, it didn't happen. But I mean, in the span of
I was
20
drawing
minutes,
back like dead steady for like 2 minutes, just waiting for him.
Yep.
Good thing my bow's really light.
So the fawn call was really effective for you guys, it sounds like.
Yeah, big time.
And
Big
this
time.
year, in our regular season, I noticed more baby deer than I'd ever seen in September.
Yeah.
A whole bunch. And that's kind of...
Yeah, a lot of does with fawns, like a lot.
It wasn't like spotted fawns. They were just...
No.
They were barely not spotted,
out of
I would
spots.
say. They
Yeah,
were
barely out of spots, but young enough to where you're like, I'm not taking that shot.
Well, the size of them alone, it was just... I mean, they're like... Some of them were like the size of a bow case.
Well, no. Like the doe alone, I wasn't going to shoot just because the fawn was so young. It's like, it might make it through.
Don't want to ban it.
Yeah. I'm going to nerd out for a minute because previously I was a Washington State master hunter, and they send us through all this education, and you have to study a bunch for this test and all that stuff. But they started talking about fawns and particularly deer. Basically, everything has a gestation period, or the time that the animal grows inside the mom before it's born.
Right.
So they talk about hunting in that relation to hunting seasons, and how you can really map out when the rut in your area is based on when you first start seeing fawns drop. Typically, where we're at, I don't see fawns in September, where you could clearly identify. You could say that's a first year deer, but you not say that thing's just like a little. That thing's still a baby.
Yeah.
This year they were still babies. So
yeah, they were pretty much second rut or something.
Mapping that back, second rut, they say it's 28 days, after the first of the second cycle. But where we hunt, there's a lot of bucks. Like I told you years ago, I said, man, I saw more bucks than I'd ever seen before. And in the last, I don't know, it's been probably 7 years since then, but it seems like they take a lot of bucks out of there, especially the rifle guys. They come in, they put a hammer down, and a lot of nice big ones. So I'm curious to know if they've pretty much, wiped the buck to doe ratio down, because there's a place I call the nursery where there's does like you wouldn't believe. And, I'm thinking they knock the bucks down way below the the good ratio of buck to doe, so they're not getting bred on a second cycle. And I'm not sure that they actually, maybe some of them are having a third. Who knows? But they're dropping so late right now.
Yeah, because that one, it would make sense if they had a late third rut.
Yeah,
Only because these fawns were super young and teeny tiny. Like they should probably still had spots on them. They were that small.
Yeah. So that got me thinking about that. I was curious to know. I was like, well, maybe the does can still be bred, but the bucks aren't in that rut phase where they're like zombieing around.
Yeah.
They're not in the full, I guess, days. So that was my thought. I thought, well, I wonder if these does can actually be bred more than the second cycle.
Maybe.
So it'd be interesting to know. If there's a biologist out there that can chime in on this, that'd be good to know because first time I've ever seen it. Also, someone took a bull yesterday in our area, and it still had velvet.
Yeah, man, it's late. The season started late. And it's not just our area. There's people in Idaho saying it, and Oregon saying it, that you can be successful, but most likely the bulls are going to be quiet. They're just going to come into calls. They're not going to really be bugling yet. They are starting to kind of start to hear it, but it's not like what it was last year.
No, last year
was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
It was on fire. So I'm thinking muzzleloader season or even rifle season,
they should have a
they're going to freaking start spanking them.
Yeah.
Which, well, I mean, sucks for us because we archery hunted, and dude, it was hard hunting. It was hard. It was hard trying to find animals. It was hard to find. Well, Mike and I didn't see jack, which sucked.
You guys went on the 2-wheel attack.
Yeah.
They were riding their bikes in the whole time. And tell us how that went. How was the experience of riding your bike in there with your bow and your pack on your back for 6 days? Was it?
Yeah. I would say the first few days it wasn't even bad because we had already had a warm up the previous week.
Already got the chafing out of the way.
Yeah, well, dude, after the first day, we looked at those bikes and we're like, we ain't getting on those things again. Like the chode area was just hammered, fucking mincemeat. It was not good. So like,
been there.
So we had a little bit of a warm up, and I mean, I think we're prepared for it. Mike actually, he mountain bikes. Like that's like one of his hobbies. He does that. He likes doing that. For me, this is my first time on a bike in a long time. I actually, so the area that we hunt used to be bike in only or walk in or whatever, no motorized, nothing. And then they opened it up 5 or 6 years ago or something like that. So, I mean, it's been a long time since I have been on a mountain bike to hunt. But I would say the first even 3 or 4 days, it wasn't even that bad. It was seriously like the last day, I was like, I'm not pedaling again. Like I'm not even
I'm not
thinking about taking another pedal. Because I mean, you can be cruising, down a hill, whatever. And then at the end of the day, when you've already hiked all stinking day long, you start, coming back, it can be flat. And then all of a sudden you got that little hill climb and you're just like, oh my gosh, the legs just start burning. My right kneecap is just.
And yeah, it doesn't take long.
Yeah, I jump right off. Mike's like, oh, I got this. He'll go like another 100 yards and then he's jumping off. And I'm like, yeah, I ain't even attempting it.
Not worth it.
Not for me, it ain't. But I mean, it wasn't bad. I would say, I would definitely do it again. I would say, I wish it was everybody had to bike in again. Only because I don't know how many people have been on the Facebook page that we're on for this area and said someone had drove by and messed up their whole thing.
I don't even want to get into that. We had an experience, man. I won't share it. It was like that, but I couldn't believe.
Luke
told you?
Yeah, he told me.
Oh my gosh.
And I can't believe if you're a hunter out there and you you have a hunter up in front of you or whatever, let them be. Let them hunt, let them do their thing instead of going up and just trying to booger up someone's hunt, cuz that's terrible. We're all working hard out there. We all are.
No matter where you're at too. So like in Idaho, I have very limited experience in Idaho, but they have there's there's an ATV access to almost all public land in a lot of the timber country, a lot of the timber lands that are owned by different companies. I can't remember the names of them, but some are different than here.
So just to let everybody know, we are in a timber.
It's a tree farm.
Area.
It's so, like 500,000 acres, though.
You got to pay to play, but it's public land. I mean, as long as you pay, you can go out there and hunt. And I mean, same thing everybody's doing pretty much down in Oregon, unless you've got just straight up DNR or state land. So,
and we've hunted there plenty, for all extensive reasons. When you have people that can drive in to an area, whether it's on an ATV or in their vehicle or on a bike, however their access is, there's a little bit of courtesy needed, because you can come up on somebody who's on foot or on a bike or in their ATV, and they might decide just to park somewhere and start walking down a road, and that's a good sign for you that someone's down there. I mean, you could go. I mean, and you can do whatever you want to do, but it's really discourteous. I felt ultimately. I mean, it was shameful what happened to us. So I'm not even going to go into it. It's just disgusting, really. I thought it was terrible. So anyhow, what I've heard,
you might as well. Everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, dang, what happened?"
I don't leave them with a cliffhanger. They'll listen next week.
What happened? What happened?
So we had hunted for, I don't know if it was 8 days or more. It was a while. It was our last day. The last hour we were going to be there. We were getting ready to go back, pack everything up, and head home. I had some business to take care of, so we were going to leave a couple days early. We were planning on going back. Things escalated at home with business and stuff, so we didn't end up going back. What happened in the end was we had spotted some deer. We weren't going to take deer early because we were elk hunting, but we spotted some deer ways off. We decided we're going to make a stalk on them. So this guy, we were getting all our stuff together, and this guy comes up. We're already on the stalk. We're walking into the spot. He sees us, and they were probably 150 or 200 yards down there. So we're going to go in. And this guy, we just waved him on, like, just go by, nice and easy. He could have just cruised on by. Instead, he cruises by, then he locks up his brakes and punches the gas, and spun out rocks. I mean, it was like, and then he just takes off. I was like, I'm going to hunt this guy down. I was so pissed, Of course, it's the last day for us. So we're going to try to do what we could do. But that was unnecessary, in my opinion. I wouldn't have done that to somebody just out of courteous, and that was it, really. I mean, it was one of those things that I felt like disrespectful, and, whether or not they were out there recreating or whatever, everybody's out there doing something, berry picking or, gathering. There's a lot of grouse hunters.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a ton of grouse hunters, yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dude,
anytime I see a grouse,
wild chickens are good.
Anytime I see a grouse on elk hunting, it's a grouse hunt. So
yeah, it just turns right into a grouse hunt. Yeah, that's terrible, man, and it happens, and it sucks. I hear stories about that, I think, too often, and it sucks. I mean, it happened to us last year. We were out, we had some elk going, and all of a sudden, they're on the road. They can definitely see where we're at, but they're bugling from the road. Like, what are you doing? Like, you see us down here where we have an interaction with elk. Like, they're talking. Why are you bugling from the road? Like, you're not helping me out.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's a pretty commonplace. People will just cruise and call. It should be a bumper sticker. You should put it on your car if you're a cruise and caller. You cruise and call. Yeah. But, it is what it is. At the end of the day, if it's incidental, things can happen, but intentional things are unnecessary. That's right. That's my opinion. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer about it.
No. It's not really. I mean, it's just things that people encounter. I mean, it happens. It really does. It happens. How about the one time, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, when we had a herd like right down below us, and someone comes walking up behind us smoking a cigarette.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Hunt? Yeah, who smokes the hunt? That was kind of,
what the heck? And all the elk just blew out like freaking instantly, and we're like, dude, all we were waiting for was daylight, and you come smoking a cigarette back behind us. Like, what are you doing? That was terrible.
Getting that last puff in.
I guess. Gotta get that nicotine.
Yeah.
Get that chew on.
Other than that, man, we had a pretty decent time. I mean, it was actually pretty good. First day, we went to that area where we were on a herd of elk first thing. That was pretty good. Now, you guys had interactions there too, because we got out on the radio and told you guys to come around this other road.
Yeah, we were heading in, but we had already, had an encounter with 2 hunters.
In that same spot?
A little bit more down the road.
Oh, okay.
So I actually thought it was you and Luke, because one person called like more crisp, how you call, and then one had more of a raspier call, like how Luke calls. And I was like, oh man, it was David and Luke. I was like, if it's them, we'll just meet up and then, keep on going, because they kept on getting closer and closer and closer. And I was like looking at Mike, I was like, I don't know if this is Dave and Luke, man. And he was like, you don't think so? And I was like, oh, these guys are dumb.
Hey man, we're dumb too.
No, but he was like, why do you say that? And I was like, well, Dave and Luke know how to use the wind. Like they wouldn't come straight at us, and I'm puffing on the wind, and I'm like, well, if it was Dave and Luke, they should be coming up and circling back and coming down to get the wind. Like that's what an elk would do.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't. They're just beelining straight to us. And I was like, oh, these are different guys, man. These are hunters. And I've actually been a professional hunter caller this year. All I've done is called in people.
Yeah.
Because on that shutdown, we hunted 2 days in a different local spot with Luke. And we would split up, and Mike and I would go to another spot. And we had a bugle that wasn't moving, and I was like, okay, Mike, that's not a bull. But we kept on getting all these other noises like coming up. And yep, lo and behold, 2 hunters come up. I'm just like waving them like, hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, they're like,
holy crap.
I want to get into more detail about the elk hunt. I think we should take a break.
Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to get into details about the elk hunt.
Yeah, part 2. So next week we'll have part 2 on more details of our elk hunt. There was actually a lot learned. We'll get it in more with Mike as well, because Mike is here in studio. But yeah, we will do a part 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this year was, I don't want to say incredible, but it got pretty good, and it was one of those times for me. I had shot at a cow. We actually searched for her, and
we won't get into that yet.
Okay,
we gotta get into that on part 2.
We'll get into it. All right, everybody.
Into that on part 2. But everybody, have a good night. Take it easy.
Thank you.